Is Dr. Sharon Michael Chadwell, and of course with me today is Chris Dawkins and Caleb Alexander. We have a we have a lot to talk about today, but before we get started, we're in Texas, we're in San Antonio, so it's imperative that we focus our prayers to the Kerrville community where they experience severe flooding, to where right now I don't know where they have recovered these girls, but there's like 23 girls missing. Just a lot of damage. The water has grown in some areas over 30 feet. I remember going to Kerrville for a race to where that area is where they have like the biking and the running, but you also swam across the Guadalupe River. So our prayers go out to the community out there. We also want to pray for all of the people who are going out there in terms of first responders. My coach, she's gathered some supplies to take out there so they can feed those folks. But again, our prayers go out to that community. So, hot topics. Well, of course, the hot topic of the day is going to be one of the hot topics that deals with the big ugly bill. And before we get started, I think I want to put some things in context. The black population, voting population in 2024 was roughly 33 million eligible voters. The voter turnout among black Americans was about 60%, meaning about 18 million black voters cast ballots. If 15 to 20% voted for Trump, that translates to approximately 2.7 to 3 million black voters. I'm just going to leave that right there. So I think that a lot of people who voted for Trump, first of all, a lot of them, because I know I met several here in San Antonio saying that the Project 2025 document was fake. There was a lot of fear mongering. But I spent a lot of time online, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and everything else, and some other sites. And there is a severe FAFO situation going on in this country right now. And for blacks, this big ugly bill is going to have a severe impact for many black Americans, because a lot of them are going to get harmed, especially in ways that aren't immediately obvious.
All Americans?
Well, all Americans, but I'm talking about in context of us, because we've been accused of not focusing on us. So we're going to focus this on us, because the reason why I want to focus this discussion on us is because of that 2.7 million who refused to black for Kamala, or who sat home and didn't vote. So voting means everything, okay? And unless you're super rich, this may not impact you, okay? But for many folks, it will impact a lot of us. So again, this is a prime example of what some are calling a FAFO moment, where we're finding out after years of political maneuvering, it's not just about fiscal policy, it's about whose lives are deemed expendable in the name of budget cuts and tax relief. And I just don't understand how anybody votes against their interests, and why the need for us to, I'm saying us as Americans, or for those folks to want to give the rich a tax break. You know, you're stealing from the poor, you're giving to the rich. Evidently, folks weren't listening to that Robin Hood story. I mean, why would you want to take from this poor woman over here, or man, to give your money to Bezos and everybody else?
And they ain't even asking for it. They don't even have to ask for it. They just giving it to them like, just here's a bag, here's a Christmas present.
So, what are your thoughts?
You know, this bill has a lot of stuff in it.
There's a lot of pork in it.
I'm more upset with Lisa Murkowski than I am probably anything else at this point, because she had the ability to stop this bill. She's the senator from Alaska, okay? And she has said she wasn't going to vote for it. And then she took a deal, which I don't know what that deal was, but I think she got a lot for her constituents there, and everybody else be damned. So I'm really upset with her that this had happened. Equally maybe upset with those Republicans who voted for this, who knew and know it's a bad bill. It's increased the deficit, as Caleb had talked about. I just don't understand where the good is. And when you talk about eliminating those people who are going to be on Medicaid, then that's really going to be a problem.
Yeah, especially when you think about it in context of, we've seen all of these, I call them side road medical facilities, Texas Clinic, the you need help, emergency room. Well, a lot of those were taking Medicaid, but now you have to have actual insurance or money to go even into those clinics. We've got even our county hospitals. How are they going to handle it? I know that, I'm not going to lie, a long time ago when I lost one of my jobs, I didn't have access to insurance. So I had to go to the county hospital, and what they did was they adjusted what I owe based on my income. And that's how I paid my bill. So are they going to keep that procedure up? And you Republicans are a trip. So you're pro-life, okay? And then you take food away from the kids. And I have worked in the public ed system or the education system. I have worked a summer school session. And you've got a lot of kids who don't have access to food. Right. For whatever reason. We see it on TV every day. For whatever reason. And I have seen kids on Fridays, okay? Now, we weren't supposed to allow it because the food was governed by not FDIC, but the
FDA or?
You
talking about FDA or?
FDA's. Yeah. So they had rules regarding school lunches. And you could, everything had to be eaten in the cafeteria. But what myself and other educators were watching were there were some kids who were getting extra extra tissues, and we were watching them dividing the food up based on the number of siblings that they had. And they were pocketing the food so that they had something to eat
when they
got home or over the weekend.
Over the weekend.
And so if you're pro-life, that pro-life needs to be exhibited beyond after the child leaves, exits the body. And this is called a spade. A lot of people think that a lot of black and brown skinned people are on food stamps.
Right.
We've got a large population of white families on food stamps.
Right.
And so now we're going to have all these kids, and it's going to be really interesting. I'm so proud of my school district. They have feeding locations where they're still trying to feed kids.
For the summer?
For the summer. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this happens. I know that some churches are trying to figure out how to align themselves more with the food bank to feed kids.
You know what's really slick with this, and I didn't know this was going to be happening, but what they did, or what they're doing, is the Medicaid and some of the other negative consequences to this big bill are not going to take effect until after the 2026 elections. So those people who are voting and who are not astute will automatically think, I'm not affected. Everything is okay. And then, like the Gap Band said, they get the bomb dropped on them.
It's up to the Democrats to hang this bill around their necks. They just have to advertise, and campaign, just campaign solely on this bill, and let people know how the Republicans voted and exactly what they voted for. The moment this bill passed, the clock started ticking, and 17 million people are going to lose health care.
Mm-hmm.
How many?
17 million. 17 million people. If you have a child who has special needs, you can forget about that program, of funding for that special needs program. Housing, food stamps, Social Security cuts are coming. Major cuts to Social Security are coming. So if you're on a fixed income, you're older, or you have older relatives who's on a fixed income, they're about to take a Social Security cut.
Wow.
Medicaid, Medicare, cuts to Medicare. It's all the way down the line, and it's going to be devastating to everyone. And so the Republicans voted against their own constituencies. The states that are going to be affected, the states that have the highest number of residents on social programs, are states like West Virginia and Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
and your Missouri and your Georgia and your Northern Florida and your Louisiana and your Arkansas, yeah, and your Mississippi and your Alabama. And so they voted against their own constituencies, against their interests. That is insane. And their constituencies know what these people were going to do when they returned them to the House, along with Trump. And so the people, my disbelief is that this country is so racist that people will vote to suffer, just from the idea that they're sticking it to a minority group. You know what I mean? That's just, to me, that's insane.
And if you start looking at some of the areas that's going to impact us, our community, again, we look at the Medicaid. There's going to be stricter eligibility, but since Black Americans make up about 21% of the Medicaid recipients, these changes are going to reduce access to essential health care. Look at the Pell Grant. The legislation cuts $2.7 million in the Department of Education funding and increases the credit hour requirements for Pell Grant recipients. Now, I need to check on that myself because I'm curious as to see how many hours these students have to take per semester. However, roughly 60% of Black college students, they rely on Pell Grants. Mm-hmm. So these changes could force students to take on heavier course loads or risk losing aid. Mm-hmm. SNAP recipients, 27% of SNAP recipients are Black, and this could lead again to widespread food insecurity in already vulnerable communities. Now let's talk about that. I have some relatives in Georgia. I went to go visit them, one time, especially in the Atlanta area. I was shocked that I was in the car and I was looking for a couple of things. Mm-hmm. Grocery store, and guess what? Starbucks. Okay, I'm a Starbucks.
That's what they had in the car?
No. I was in the car,
Oh, you were looking for...
Yeah, Starbucks. Okay, mm-hmm. So, I didn't see a Starbucks. But what I didn't see, I did not see going to their home was, I said, where are the grocery stores? Where are the grocery stores? So we've got areas in the Atlanta area where the nearest grocery store may not be near a community for about 10 to 15 minutes.
Wow.
I guess walk time, because I knew we were in the car for a while. So you're going to have that food insecurity. The other thing is so the tax cuts is going to widen the racial wealth gap. A 2024 study found that corporate tax breaks disproportionately value white Americans due to their higher ownerships of stocks and bonds. And then, of course, let's just go ahead and talk about the environmental rollbacks. The bill eliminates clean energy tax incentives, which could worsen conditions in majority black sacrifice zones already burdened with pollution and environmental hazards. So again, to the 2.7%, I mean 2.7 million folks who didn't vote, you voted against your interests.
I don't want to say good enough for them, but it's because it's going to affect everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a bill that's filled with cruelty. That's just what it is. It's not a budget bill. It's a bill to say how cruel can we get? How cruel can we be? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Normal budget items, and there are things that you can debate about with the normal course of legislation. We're going to debate about how much we're going to spend on defense. You know what I'm saying? That's within reason. You know what I mean? We're going to debate how much we're going to spend on infrastructure. That's within reason. This debate was about how much we're going to take away from children.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? How much food we're going to take away. How much medical care we're going to take away. How much it was just enormous cruelty.
Now, in terms of defense, something that I did not see in the bill, but that don't mean it's not in the bill, but I do know it's in Project 2025, is the requirement that they're going to put in high schools, that high school seniors will have to take the ASVAB test for the military to see if they're eligible for the military. It won't be a requirement for private schools, because we don't want them rich kids to go to the military, but it will be put back into high schools. So that means a lot of our babies may qualify for the military.
So does that mean that you think the draft is coming back?
Oh, I know the draft is coming back.
You do?
Yeah, I've already said it. We had that discussion.
Okay.
We already had that discussion. So our next hot topic, you want to say anything else on this one before we go forward?
Nope.
Okay, so let's talk about this $300,000 or 30 pieces of silver payout that was made to the black churches who were members of the National Baptist Convention. Target paid the National Baptist Convention $300,000 for whatever. And I know that Jamal Bryant and some other folks, we were working hard to boycott Target on their anti-DEI withdrawal, removing products out of the stores by black folks. And then here comes this $300,000 gift or donation. It's more of a donation to the National Black Baptist Convention. So let's put this $300,000 into context. There are 31,000 members of this convention, and if you divide that $300,000 by that 31,000, that means each church got $9.67.
Whoa.
Now the supporters of the $300,000 says, well, it helps with tuition, helping seniors, and something else. Well, I want to know is this: got 31,000 churches, and say that money went for scholarships.
Right.
That sounds like a one-time effort.
Right.
Yeah.
And what are they doing to help seniors?
Who has a $9 scholarship? Who has $9 tuition? $9.10 for the tuition. I mean, it doesn't make sense. And so
stand for something, or
it was an abandoning of principles. They should have refused that money. Again, I mean, it speaks to the relevance of the black church.
So let me run it back to you this way. Where's the leadership?
Apparently, the leadership is taking money from Target.
No, but what I'm saying is that when you're doing something like this, okay, and you're saying maybe we don't need the leadership in certain things, then where is that? Who's to tell them that they're doing wrong at the time that they're doing it,
Right.
so that they don't make this vital mistake?
But see, at the same time, you can reverse that, because if it's a community-wide effort, then who does target? Who do they bribe? You know what I mean? And so here they had an organization to bribe, the National Black Convention. Oh,
But
I'm
what
going to
I'm
bribe
saying
this
is-
convention because this convention represents
Right.
black folks.
And I understand that, but I'm saying, where was the voice of reason? Where
Those
was
people are grown adults.
But where was the leadership?
The leadership,
The leadership
of that
was
convention.
The leadership was weak.
The leadership of that
there
convention.
was no leadership?
It was
There were
weak.
leaders at that convention. There were organizers. There were leaders. There were ministers who.
I guess,
were at that
okay,
convention.
let me take it one step further. Can you even call them leaders? Because this is the decision that they made for their churches.
They're leaders, but they just led the wrong way.
Okay.
But see, what they should have done was this. They said, look, we see what you're trying to do. We support what Reverend Bryant and all these other black folks who are boycotted Target. We're not going to take the money. Now, if you want to work with us on how to get black folks back in your stores, then we can all sit together and talk about what needs to happen, and that's reinstating some DEI policies.
Right.
You know, but I'm disappointed. I understand
And on top of that, this is Target. If you want to come with some numbers, 310,000, how about 3.1 billion? You know what I mean? Or even 310 million would have started the conversation. Now we talking about, 310 million or 3.1 billion. That's real money. Now we can talk about scholarships. Now we can talk about equity. Now we can talk about management. You know what I mean? What's your board look like? How many African Americans do you have on your board? How many African Americans are managing your stores? Now we can have a conversation about equity and inclusion and stuff like that. But let's come with some real numbers if you want us to view you as a fair and equitable partnership and relay that message to our communities.
I agree with you, bro.
You know what I mean?
You know, because if you think about $300,000,
Yeah.
and you're talking about scholarships, they're actually talking about $500 scholarships.
Yeah.
That's not even.
That means every church wouldn't even be able to give a scholarship.
So I'm disappointed in the National Black Baptist Convention. I understand. I'm not going to say who, but supposedly a certain pastor in San Antonio got called back up into the board, somewhere to discuss, I guess, what was going on.
Jemison.
So I'm going to.
No, I'm telling you who it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just disappointed that, pastors, if you don't understand business, stay in your lane. Just stay in your lane. You don't have to be the know-it-all of everything.
Never go to a meeting by yourself. And if you're an organization, take another organization or somebody else with you to make sure that you do have that voice of reason and that somebody else is hearing what those people are offering you so that you know how to act and react. And somebody can't put you in a position where somebody said they said this, but they actually said something different. That's my advice.
And who are you listening to? Like, what does your constituency look like? Let's be honest. What does your church membership look like? How does the boycott of Target? Do they care? Do they want to restart shopping again at Target? You understand what I'm saying? So what is your relationship to the broader community?
Right.
Right. Does your church members care or even need
Right.
diversity and equity initiatives?
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's the
Okay.
If you think
question.
about this area, right, where this studio is set, there's not even a Target in the area. So I don't understand how, this $9.67 was even applicable.
Yeah, you talk about these communities, but and let's talk about these communities, but let's also talk about the churches in these communities. Now let's think about the parishioners for some of these churches. Some of these churches, 100% of their parishioners drive from outside of this community back
Over
into
here.
That's
these
correct.
churches.
That's
They
correct.
don't even reside in
That's
this community.
correct. That's correct.
You know what I'm saying? They do not reside in these communities. These churches have become symbols.
You got some pastors who don't even live in the community,
They don't live in a community. A lot of them drive from
wherever.
some pretty nice areas. So
All righty. So hot topic number 3. Diddy. Guilty or not guilty? There's a
You're
lot.
asking about public opinion? Is that a question, or
What were your thoughts? Because I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm confused on this whole thing, because first of all, I don't think there's anything against the law about having a freak off. Okay, I don't think there's anything in the book saying that you can't have a freak off. You've got folks who are not black having freak offs. You've got folks in politics having freak offs. So if that's telling me that by definition, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing illegal but having a freak off.
that's true.
Now, the other piece of this thing is he was found guilty of sex trafficking.
Correct.
Now, my concern is this: how old were the ladies in that building, where they had the freak offs, and how were they transported from across state lines? Were they, what is trafficking?
Yeah, you have to, especially on a federal charge, you have to traffic across the state line
You
to
know,
make it illegal.
And
Yeah.
these women had zero opportunity to object or escape or call someone. I mean, it's just, were they willing participants? I'm going to say this, and I'll admit, I did not watch a single second of the Diddy trial. I'm just not really up to speed on a lot of the celebrity things that are going
Well,
on.
let me tell you a couple things. Number one, the defense did not call one witness.
A lot of times they don't need to.
Well, they didn't need to, obviously, here, because he was found not guilty on 3 of the 5 charges. And the prosecution, I think, called 37 witnesses. And based on the way the verdicts came out, it would stand to reason that the prosecution did not convince the jury
Right.
that these things were going on.
Which, and also tell you, for the last 2 charges of trafficking, his lawyers are I'm sure they instantly filed the appeal. Those last 2 charges will probably be beaten as well. If his case was that weak that 3 out of 5 got dismissed, he's probably going to.
You also have to
appeal and
remember
walk.
the guy who filed the charge was trying to make a name for himself,
Right.
and he was black. And when Trump came into office, he left office. So he was not there to really present the case that he had presented all along. So he wasn't there. I mean, the people who've been in his position before, I can't remember. Maybe I think Cuomo had been there.
Okay.
Rudy Giuliani had been there.
Okay.
All of them had made a name for themselves
Got it.
in taking these racketeers
Right.
to court. And I think that that's what this guy thought. But when Trump came into office and he left, I think that unraveled the whole case.
I mean, you know what? And I do want to be on record. I saw that video, the Cassie video.
Right.
Horrendous.
He
Right.
was dragging her down the
Right.
Yeah. So,
So she's trying to get away.
my thing is this. So should Sean Combs should he have been prosecuted for that?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He put his hands on that woman, and that was abhorrent.
Right.
But he
And
was in trial for that.
he wasn't on trial for that. That should have been a state case, and his ass should have been in jail for putting his hands on a black woman. Now, I'm not familiar with the other charges, the other case, the federal charges, and all that kind of crap. But I just want to say that I heard just stuff about the baby oil, and I see the judge, the jokes, and the memes, and all that kind of
Did
crap.
you see
whatever
what
it is.
happened after the verdict was read?
No.
They got people outside the courtroom, outside the courthouse, putting baby oil on themselves. I'm saying, what?
So this case confuses me. It's confuses me because it's the math ain't mathing. I'll have to admit the math just isn't mathing. Cassie, I'm a woman, okay, and
Cassie got paid, though.
yeah, she got paid. How long did she allow all this to go on? Was she threatened? could she have walked out the front door and says, I'm not doing this anymore?
No.
You know,
Because if she had walked out, number one, he was also threatening the family. He was paying the family off as well. So her mother and father and some other people, it went beyond. That's why they were talking about the racketeering and the different other stuff like that, because those people were put in jeopardy. Yes, she could have walked away, but at what cost?
Right. And the difference in power dynamic. And if you're dependent on this person for your livelihood, your income, and all this kind of stuff, and your family's dependent on this person. And so,
so if the family was depending on the money,
I guess, to
live.
So and her boyfriend,
in a situation.
Cassie's boyfriend had, I think it was a Ferrari, and they showed how Diddy burned it up.
Wow.
And so this guy goes to talk to Diddy, and I guess they come to an agreement or whatever. He says, now what about my car? And Diddy says, well, what about your car? I ain't doing nothing about your car.
Wow. So, no, I mean, Diddy, from the stuff, the abuse, and then the abuse of power and the physical abuse, is disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting. And so, but at the same time, like I said, I'm not familiar with the other stuff. And I imagine that he'll probably appeal and be out on the other charges as well. Should he be muted?
He's going to do probably 2 years.
We muted Kells, and so what will the future relationship with the black community look like based on his abuse of power over, black women, based on his physical abuse? There's the issue of Kim Porter, and so there's some other questions there. So, what going forward? How should we view Diddy?
Sure.
Yeah. How do we view him? And his damage to our community, his damage to people in our community. He's an abuser. He's a monster. He's a black version of Epstein. How do we navigate the space going forward with Diddy and his music?
Well, let me give you one other thing to think about, especially the way you ended that conversation. You said, and his music. So these rappers have put this type of behavior into the music. Mm-hmm. So when you put this type of behavior into the music, again, from a black standpoint, what do we do? Really, what do we do as a community?
Well,
this is affecting us in tremendous ways, and we see this has gone on trial, and they basically they've slapped this guy's hand.
Well, just think about it in terms of R. Kelly.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Folks were saying, well, I still liked his music, so I'm going to still buy his music.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I suspect once Diddy's out of jail, folks are still going to buy his music because they like his music. They separate we have a tendency of separating the crime from the product.
Yeah, we do. But and at the same time, is that troublesome? And I tell you that for a couple of reasons. One, because his spins and his revenue from us buying and listening to his music, you know what I mean? So economically, are we still supporting the person and his lifestyle and his power and his ability to abuse power? Mm-hmm. Are we still rewarding that bad behavior, right? At the same time, some of the artists that he has elevated, we don't want to punish the artist, but we do understand that he also, in addition to that artist getting revenue, he also gets revenue from that, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
It's tricky. It is. It's no easy answer.
It's tricky.
It is very tricky, right? But Diddy's a slick dude, and I have pun intended,
Right.
but yeah.
Especially when you put baby on him. He's real slick.
I mean, a lot of questions. But to Chris's point, and this is what's gonna happen: they're gonna attack you, and they're gonna call it the politics of respectability, right? Mm-hmm. And I absolutely hate that term. You know what I mean? And you bushy and you don't understand, and you know what I'm saying, you're old and you're out of touch. But here's the deal, and again, this idea of the politics of respectability. We all talk about China, right? What does China do with TikTok, right? They show their kids winning spelling bees and science awards, and they show their kids excelling, you know what I'm saying, in math.
And we show everything.
And we show our kids eating Tide Pods, right? That's the algorithm. They let us be dummies while they show their kids and encourage their kids to excel, right? They don't call that the politics of respectability. they call it China's elevating their children, elevating their social culture, and encouraging their children, right? So we propose the same kind of solutions. Hey, look, this is culturally damaging to us. Can we change this? Oh, we get attacked, saying it's politics of respectability. It's okay for someone else to elevate themselves, elevate their children, elevate their culture, and want to promote a positive, healthy culture and produce positive, healthy, socially conscious kids that are able to contribute to society, able to contribute to the elevation of their people and their culture. We get attacked, other folks don't. So I just want to point that out.
Great point.
You know what I mean?
Great
and so
point.
To hell with your politics. People who are going to attack us for the politics of respectability, to hell with you. I don't give a shit, because we have a right and a responsibility to elevate our kids, to elevate our culture.
Great point.
To make sure that we produce kids that are socially conscious. Mm-hmm. We produce kids that are able to elevate us, and continue us our movement into the future. You know what I mean? Hell, because on the track we're going to kill each other off. There's 20-something people died in Chicago the other night. You know what I mean? And so we're going to continue to be taken advantage of economically, socially, politically, if we don't continue to elevate ourselves, elevate our kids, and make sure the future generation is better than the previous generations. You know what I mean?
Dr. Chadwell, with that, I lay down.
No. I know they're coming after my boy right here. I know they're going to come after my dude, so I just want to throw that out there. I'm with you.
I thought that was very good and well stated, and I think that it's something that we should really hear and adhere to, okay? Which we haven't to in the past, okay?
Right.
This is the type of stuff that I talk about when I talk about leadership. The thing that you're talking about right now is what I talk about when I talk about leadership. And for you to take that stand and at least to make people understand about that, I bow down to you, brother.
No,
Start elevate. We need to start elevating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we've had a lot to say today. This has been a very interesting hot topic segment.
Are we done with hot? Was that the last one?
That was.
Can we mention alligator Alcatraz?
Oh, yeah, okay. So
I just want to talk about it.
It's kind of like you steal from FEMA to build that.
Alligator Alcatraz, and then is it Laura Loomer, who says she's the Trump, his girlfriend. So she's saying that alligator lives matter. Her post.
Alligator what?
Alligator lives matter.
Oh,
and
okay.
we need to feed 65 million alligators.
What?
Or we can make sure that alligators have 65 million meals. Right. So. Black people this
is making me sicker, man.
Right. So it's not 65 million black people in this country. So we know who they're talking about.
Who are they talking about?
They talking about
Latinos.
We know who they talking about. We know the reason they talking about birthright citizenship. You know what I mean? And reversing birthright citizenship. We know the reason. She knows she's in on these conversations. You know what I mean? Hell, she sparked probably half of them.
Because what is she, a psychic?
She's his girlfriend. She's his boo. His whatever, his side piece, whatever she is to. But we know who they're talking about. And so hey, my thing is this. You have a huge number of Latinos who voted for Trump. Right? I want to know how they feeling right now. Because they're not talking about us, they talking about them. These people are talking about feeding you to alligators. They talking about feeding your people to alligators. They're talking about deporting you. They're talking about it doesn't matter if you were born in this country, if your grandparents are not born in this country, you don't have citizenship. They're trying to revoke generations of birthright citizenship. That's where the 65 million come from. You know what I'm saying? They're trying to deport all of you because you are a threat. Latinos are a threat demographically. Because you're having more kids than white folks, because they see your culture, they see they have to press one for English and two for Spanish. I mean, all that to them, and so all of that to them is
one for
culturally.
English, two for Spanish.
Yeah, you know what I mean, culturally, and so this is they view you as a threat. They're trying to get rid of you, deport you, and apparently feed you to alligators. And so
all having babies.
Yeah, and they continue to expand. So this is the deal. You have always tried to assimilate into whiteness. You have always viewed black folks as your enemies. right? Or try to make black
No
folks
one
into your
escapes.
enemies. Black folks fought for civil rights for you as well. You know what I mean? For all of us, including you as well. But yet and still, you continue to align yourself with whiteness.
Right.
You know what I mean? Despite them saying that they view you as drug dealers and rapists, despite them talking about deporting all of you, despite them criminalizing all of you, now wanting to feed you to alligators, you still continue to align yourself with whiteness. We're not your enemies. They continue to tell you that they are your enemies. And we continue to tell you that we are not. I think that you Latino folks need to have a come to Jesus meeting. They need to have a serious conversation within their broader community and understand who is their ally, where their interests lie, and I mean, just take them at their word. When they call you rapists and criminals, take them at their word. When they tell you they want to deport you and they want to take away your citizenship, listen to them. You know what I mean? When they tell you that they view your people as alligator food, listen to them.
Alligator food.
Yeah. Don't listen to us. Listen to them. You know what I mean? Listen to what they're saying. They don't like you. They don't want you here, and they don't want you to try to assimilate into their culture, no matter how bad you want to assimilate to culture. I understand that there's the psychological aspect. I understand this Latino culture that's wanted to be affiliated and associated with whiteness, and the dynamics of colorism within the Latino community in Central and South America. I understand that history. You got to get past that and overcome that, because these folks are not playing with you. I will give the floor.
When you send your comments in, his name is Caleb Alexander.
Now look, I was on your side a second ago. Now you want to throw me under the bus. You see how black folks are? You see?
Well, all I can say is this: this whole alligator Alcatraz is it's sickening.
Yeah.
It's sickening, and it's already flooding. They got the nerve to say this thing was built, I think, in 8 days, 2 weeks, whatever.
Yeah.
They're saying that this location can withstand a Category 2 hurricane.
Apparently it can't understand. It can't stand rain. A rain.
No, because it's already flooded.
So my question is, you know, if it's flooding, can the alligators cross over and still get in? There's just, you know, we're dealing with some sick folks.
You know something else I saw? I guess this is in the wetlands, wherever they are on the west side of Florida. They've built an airport there as well. So they
to
can
get
fly,
them in.
Huh?
To get them in.
To get them in, yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. And then I heard that they're bringing alligators. Like people are sending alligators from Louisiana and all these other Mississippi, sending them picking the biggest alligators and sending them there and all that. Oh, they're having fun with it. Like white folks are actually having fun and sending these folks alligators.
So then what they do is they open up the gates and say, "Y'all free to go."
And there's been not a single documented case of escape from the detention facilities that they cannot escape from those steel bars and those detention centers they're already being housed in.
But based on what you're saying,
this was just theatrics and cruelty.
Okay, I agree.
That's all that was. That's just theatrics and cruelty. They're performative. A lot of their actions, they don't solve problems. They're just performative actions, so that they can cheer and happy and feel good about their racism. That's what that is.
Trump versus Tramp. What's that mean?
Oh, you know who they're referring to. They're referring to Vice President Harris. When they talk about Trump versus Tramp. That's who they're referring to.
Okay.
And his ass looked like he needs a couple of insulin shots wearing that fucking tight ass shirt. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, don't be talking about his diabetics.
No, Trump
I know
versus
what you're
Tramp. They're calling the black woman Tramp. That just pissed me off.
I know,
anyway.
I know. So with that being said, we've had a lot to talk about today. We want you to please, leave your comments. We do read them. And again, we want to thank Carl Booker, who is our producer, for putting up with us and putting this show together. And with that being said, this is Contemporary Black Voices, where we're telling our stories our way.
That's a wrap.
All right.
A little marathon y'all had.